Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight released a yellow spoiler article for Way of the Force, yellow pod racing to be exact. So we are getting pod racers, pod racing pilots, events related to pod racing, a plot, and a battlefield related to it as well. So we're going to go ahead, take a look at all these cards, going to give you my thoughts on them, I'm going to break them down. So first up, we have Sebulba Cutthroat Podracer, 9 health, 9 points or 12 points depending if you want to run a single die or run him at elite. 2 range damage, 2 indirect damage, disrupt, resource, special, and blank. Character, he's a pilot. Special, place 1 resource on a support in play or remove 1 resource from a support in play. So the special, you can use it with something like remote stockpile to put resources on it. One of the plots we'll get to a little bit later focuses on putting resources on some of your Podracer supports. So Sebulba would be able to do that as well. Damage, so he has 2 damage sides here. We would get a disrupt resource and the special. 9 health and for 9 points, so you have that 1-to-1 ratio for his health and his points. I think the die is decent, so you get 2 damage sides there. Nothing modified, nothing resource costed, and then again the 1-to-1 point ratio for his health to his cost is decent, I think. And hopefully we'll have more supports coming out that interact when resources are put on them. We've had stuff interact with damage tokens, but now this is things that will let you put resource tokens on a support. The fact that is specifically supports means you won't be able to remove resources from your opponent's long-term plan plot for red, which lets you put a resource on the plot and then eventually later resolve a die, increasing it by those number of resources. So it won't work with that, but it will work with remote stockpile. So that is Sebulba. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Sebulba's Podracer. 2 resources. It's a support vehicle Podracer. So again, cost 2. 1 indirect damage, 2 indirect damage for a resource. Disrupt, discard, shield, and a blank. Has ambush, so you get the second action or additional action after you play it. And after you resolve this die, you may deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent, or if you spot Sebulba, deal 1 damage to a character. So if you have Sebulba, this is a little bit better because you can basically choose where that damage goes. If you don't have Sebulba or he's been defeated, it still deals 1 extra indirect damage after it gets resolved on top of whatever you resolve it for. So if you resolve it for the 1 indirect, you'll deal 1 indirect, possibly plus another indirect, or just a direct damage if you have Sebulba. I'm not a fan of the resource cost side on this, so indirect already isn't super amazing because your opponent chooses where to put it, so they could obviously put it on their character that they don't care about really surviving. They can put it on supports like Bubble Shield and things like that, so you can basically block it from hitting characters. But then again, if you are playing Sebulba, you do get the option to get that 1 direct damage. The sides, aside from the resource costed indirect, aren't bad. I think so. You have a disrupt, a discard, and a shield. Plus, it only costs 2. It's not super expensive. I do like that you also get ambush out of this. So that is Sebulba's Podracer. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Anakin Skywalker, pod racing prodigy, so yellow version of Anakin. 7 health for 7 or 10 points. So again, the 1-to-1 ratio there. Another pilot character. He has discard, 1 discard, shield, resource, blank. And after you activate this character, you may turn 1 of your droid or pod racer dice to any side. So that ability, I think, is pretty cool right there, with being able to flip droid. So you can slot Anakin into a deck with blue, get access to the newer R2-D2 from the Luke Skywalker starter set, and flip R2-D2 into a special, and then maybe special chain out of that with other blue cards like Force Focus and Yoda specials and things like that if you happen to have Yoda on your team as well. One interesting thing about this is Anakin Skywalker. We have Anakin Skywalker from the draft set. We also have Darth Vader. One of like the specific Anakin from the draft set says you can't have Darth Vader on your squad. This is more of an issue for draft, I think. So, what would happen if you were to draft Darth Vader, either Awakenings Vader or Spirit of Rebellion Vader with I think it's Dark Apprentice Vader, and have this Anakin on your team? Would that be legal? Would there be a clarification that if you have Anakin on your team, you can't have a version of Darth Vader on your team? I know you can have multiple of the same character exact with the exact name, but there are two different cards, and essentially for the purpose of the game, different characters. Of course, different faction alignments. So this Anakin is hero, while Vader and Emo Vader or Baby Vader are villain. But just an interesting thing here. So out of all the characters I think that are spoiled today, it was just two, just Sebulba and Anakin. I think I like Anakin a little bit more just because of his ability to flip a droid or a pod racer, especially if you're using, like I said, blue R2D2 from the Luke starter, and then also being able to flip other pod racers to any side as well. Again, only 7 health, but 7 for 7, which is pretty good. And then can get rid of cards, has discard, can protect with shields, and then the 3 resource sides as well. So that is Anakin Skywalker. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Anakin Skywalker's Pod Racer. So again, support vehicle Pod Racer, 2 resources, disrupt, discard, shield, 2 shields, +1 resource blank, has ambush just like Sebulba's Pod Racer. And after you resolve this die, you may discard the top card of the deck, or if you spot Anakin Skywalker, discard a random card from an opponent's hand. So that ability is pretty cool. So you can slot this kind of into like a mill deck, where you are either going to be discarding a card off the deck, or if you have Anakin, discarding um, a card out of hand. I talked about building possibly something like Yoda Anakin and maybe some other characters. So you have 13 with Yoda. You have 20 points there if you do Elite Yoda, um, single die Anakin, or 23 points if you go Elite Yoda, Elite Anakin, and then perhaps another 7-point character or a 6-point character in a single point plot. So you can slot this into a build deck. So it has discard on it already, and then its ability after you resolve it also discards cards. You get a card out of the deck if you're just playing it. If let's say Anakin's defeated, or if you have Anakin, you get a card out of hand as well. So I like that it hits both the hand and the deck. The sides I think are decent, so you have a +1 resource, so that'll pair up with Anakin's one of his 3 resource sides. A good shield side, so a 1 shield and a 2 shield. Also gets rid of resources and also discards as well. So you can potentially resolve the discard side on this die, and then discard another card with the ability of it as well. So that is Anakin Skywalker's Pod Racer. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Podracer Betting. Neutral yellow event, 1 resource. Choose a number, then re-roll one of your vehicle dice. If that dice, or if that die just rolled a value equal to the number you chose, gain 2 resources, or 3 resources if it was a Podracer die. Not really sure how I feel about this. I suppose it could be useful. The fact is, though, you are basically going to have to call a number, and hope that you re-roll that die and get that number to get those resources. Um, I suppose also, let's say you have no cards in hand, and all you really need is to roll damage on a vehicle to win the game, basically. Let's say your opponents have claimed, and you have no cards in hand to discard for reroll, but you have a resource. So you spend the resource, play Podracer Betting, choose a number, re-roll it. Let's say you get the number, you get the resources. But let's say you don't get the number, but still get damage. You can then potentially resolve that die and potentially win the game. I think it's a little bit risky though. Like I would only use it in a situation to where I didn't have cards to discard for rerolls, and it would be a situation where if I got the right roll, I would be able to possibly win the game with it. Um, You also have to look at both the Podracer dice, see like what numbers show up more frequently on each of those dice, and then kind of bet accordingly. Like let's say, okay, this die has two twos on it. I'll choose two. Hopefully, if I re-roll it, I'll get one of those numbers right. Or let's say it has two sides that have two on it. You get it right. You get three resources of it being a pod racer die. I do like that it also just re-rolls other vehicle dice too. If you have like a resistance bomber or like any other vehicle with damage, you can potentially get damage out of it with this. I don't think this will see play unless pod racing like really catches on as a like catches on in the meta. I don't think it will, but it's going to be interesting to see how pod racing plays out. So that is Podracer Betting. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Start Your Engines. Neutral yellow event, 0 resources. Search your deck for a pod racer, reveal it, and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So basically a tutor for pod racers. Um, if you're playing pod racers, I guess this is could be a good card. But if you only have like one or two pod racers, I don't like I said, we've only seen two pod racer cards so far. If they go really deep with the pod racers, and we get other characters such as maybe Gasgano, um, and the other pod racers in the Phantom Menace, maybe this will be more beneficial. But right now, depending on what deck you're running, if you're running a hero or villain deck, you're only going to be able to have two pod racer cards in your deck. So if you're playing hero, you're only going to be able to, at max, have two Anakin pod racers. If you're playing villain, you're only going to have up to two Sebulba pod racers. I can see this working maybe better in draft if you somehow miraculously draft um, multiple pod racers. Like if everybody opens like a pod racer, for example, I don't really see this card being super useful. It's similar to lightsaber pull, but lightsaber pull at least gives you a weapon. Possibly like you get paired really well with the Asian lightsaber because you put it in your deck after you use it, and you just get it back with that. I don't know if Start Your Engines will be good. Currently, I don't think it will be, just because there is really limited options with the pod racers, unless Fantasy Flight in this set and maybe in the set after do more and more pod racers. I like what they're doing with the Gungans because that's kind of like a tribal synergy that you kind of get out of like elves or goblins and magic or any of the other tribes. But I don't really see it working with pod racers because you're building your entire team and your entire deck around this mechanic. And as like we see the dice, and the dice don't really do a lot of damage. Sebulba has the two damage sides. Anakin doesn't have any damage sides. Sebulba's Pod Racer has some indirect, but I definitely don't see. I could see it being like building a fun Anakin pod racing deck just for like casual play and just kind of like messing around, trying to have fun. I don't see pod racing being competitive. But again, that is Start Your Engines. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have the Bunta Eve Classic. This is the plot I was talking about earlier. Costs 2 points. After you resolve one of your pod racer dice, you may place one resource on that pod racer. If there are 4 more resources on it, set each copy of this plot aside and gain 4 resources. So Sebulba interacts with this fairly well. His special, he's able to place resources on supports. So he could place resources onto the pod racers and potentially have this work. I really don't like this plot. So it costs 2. So you're building potentially a less effective team by not building 30 points and building it with 28 and using this plot. You are then having to place a resource on the pod racer card after you resolve the die. So it requires you to roll in and resolve those pod racer dice. If they get removed from play with some kind of effect like flank or electroshock or anything like that, you won't be able to place the resource on it, and then you won't be able to eventually not be able to trigger the effect of getting the 4 resources. Another thing I don't like about this is those resources are on supports, and if your opponents are playing cards to remove supports, that won't work either. So they can sabotage your pod racer, have you discard it. Let's say you have 2 resources on it. They play sabotage. You lose the Podracer card plus the resources that were stacked on it, and then you won't be able to get those back probably. Also, it looks like it only works with one pod racer. So even if they do other hero or villain or even neutral pod racers, it reads after you resolve one of your pod racer dice, place one resource on that pod racer. It doesn't say place it on. Um, so if I resolve Anakin's pod racer die, I can't put that resource on any other pod racer. It has to go on Anakin's. And then if I'm playing against it and I see okay they're using Anakin's pod racer, they're stacking resources on it, I will then try to get rid of that resource or that support in some way. So I really don't like this plot. I think you could build a more effective team and go to 29 or 30 points. It just seems 2 points to potentially maybe earn 4 resources throughout the game. I think you're better off doing something like the 3 point profitable connection, getting 3 resources to start the game with. Because, like I said, if the pod ratio gets destroyed somehow, if a card effect like an ATSE special, or they just constantly remove that die, this is going to essentially be a useless plot. So, not really a big fan of the Boot to Eve Classic plot, but we're going to move into our final card. And final card for today is the Moss Espa Arena from Tatooine. Claim, force an opponent to choose to either lose one resource or have you gain one resource. Spot a pod racer to force them to do both instead. So, let's say my opponent I have a resource and I claim. My opponent, I can say, okay, you get the option to either lose a resource of yours or give me a resource. They choose and you get that option. If you have a pod racer in play, you can then say, okay, I get to gain a resource and you lose a resource, basically. I could see this maybe being all right in decks that are playing very fast, so your opponent really never has a chance to claim it, which means that they won't be using it against you. They won't be making you lose a resource or give them one. So let's see. I think if your opponent has no resources, they have to choose to give you one because it says to choose to lose one resource. It doesn't say any number of resources like with what is it? Abandon all hope, which is either opponent either loses all their resources or loses resources or hand. They can choose to lose um, 0 if they have it, because 0 is a number. But this says force them to choose to either lose one or give you one. So this card I don't think is terrible, especially if you're playing in a fast enough deck. You might not actually have it be used against you. But so I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the pod racing. I think it's kind of funny. Maybe it'll be kind of like it'll be fun in like a casual kind of way. I definitely don't see pod racing being being competitive really, or even like a meta deck. It would be kind of cool if you like, let's say I create 2 pod racing decks. I create like a Sebulba and an Anakin and just play them against each other. That would be kind of interesting. I don't see these cards really being used in outside of that really. Like I said, Anakin is kind of interesting just because of his ability to flip either a pod racer die or a vehicle. Sebulba is decent because he has the 2 damage sides, but I don't really see the pod racers being the pod racer actual supports really being all that useful. I think there's better supports you could play in both standard and trilogies right now than these pod racers. If I can see pod racing becoming more interesting if they were to add some of the other alien pod racers and their pod racers to the game. Maybe have some neutral characters or neutral pod racers as well. Because right now we just got Anakin and Bulba, so we have hero and villain, but we don't have any neutral pod racers. So I think they could definitely do that. Um, I definitely will commend Fantasy Flight for trying to make this thematic and trying to make it interesting. I think it'll be fun in a casual format, but not really outside of that. So we're just going to wait and see how it goes. But that is going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time, and take care. Thanks again for watching.